At dinner, my stepson slammed his fork onto the table and sneered, "Dad, you're such a joke. Mom really upgraded." My wife, Selena, smirked. Finally, someone who actually earns a living properly. Her sister giggled. "Why even show up? Seriously?" I sat quietly, fork in hand, pretending the sharp words bounced off me. I kept my voice calm, though my chest burned. By morning, his car was gone, his credit cards cancelled, his school accounts locked. My name is Jordan. I'm 44. I was married to Selena for 12 years before she decided she wanted someone. We have a stepson, Lucas, now 17, who has lived with us since he was 10. Our divorce was finalized 2 years ago. Selena got the house and I stayed with my smaller condo, while still contributing to Lucas's schooling and daily needs. Here's the part Selena never understood. I'm not just a normal guy. I quietly built a tech company in my 20s, sold it at 29, and made millions. I didn't flaunt my wealth. I drive a sensible car, live modestly, and don't advertise what I have. During our marriage, I paid all the bills, Lucas's tuition, and her lifestyle without making it a spectacle. When Selena left, I remained generous, covering Lucas's tuition, car, and phone, believing it was part of supporting my stepson. Selena thought she had won by taking the house and some financial support, but she never knew the full scope of my wealth. Lucas started dating into entitlement. At first, I tolerated his snide remarks, thinking it was teenage rebellion, but things escalated after Selena's new boyfriend, Grant, came into the picture. Grant flaunted his wealth, his car, and his designer clothes, constantly comparing himself to me. It wasn't about the money for me. Never was. It was about respect. Yet, at Lucas's 17th birthday dinner, the mocking reached its peak. Lucas, emboldened by Selena and her family, said loud enough for everyone to hear, "At least Mum's new boyfriend isn't a loser like you." Selena laughed. Her family joined in, snickering, raising their glasses to Grant. I finished my steak. Methodically, keeping my voice low, "Happy birthday, Lucas. Enjoy your night." Then I left quietly. That night, I began quietly dismantling the privileges he had assumed were permanent. The next morning, I called Selena. "We need to talk," I said calmly. "Jordan, what are you?" she started, but I interrupted. "I'm done being taken for granted. Lucas's tuition, car, phone, everything I've been covering beyond what the divorce requires, that stops now. He wants Grant to be his role model. Fine, let Grant pay for his lifestyle." Selena's voice shook. "Jordan, you can't just tease my son. Lucas is a teenager," I said evenly. "He doesn't get to disrespect me, insult me, and expect life to continue as before. I've been generous, beyond reason, and it's been met with mockery and manipulation. That ends today." I could hear her gulping, her tears threatening to spill. "But what about College Northwestern he needs? He can take out loans like millions of other students, or maybe he'll earn part of it himself. I've provided for him for 7 years. I've ensured he had everything necessary and most things he wanted, but I'm not funding entitlement, disrespect, or public humiliation anymore." Silence followed. "You're being cruel," Selena whispered. "No, I'm being realistic. Actions have consequences." Lucas's behavior, combined with your family's mockery, made clear that respect is not present. I can continue legally required child support and alimony, that's it. Everything else, out of generosity or habit, stops. She didn't respond. Immediately, I could almost hear her mind racing. That weekend, Lucas called. For the first time in weeks, it wasn't a demand or a whine, it was a voice filled with panic. "Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't understand. I was stupid. I just want things back to how they were before." Hearing him cry, I felt a flicker of the connection we once had, buried under layers of teenage ego and outside influence. "Lucas," I said gently, "I love you. Always have, always will. But love requires respect. You can't treat people like garbage and expect generosity in return." "I know, Dad, I was wrong. I see now. I see what you've done for me. Everything I thought was automatic. It was you. It was all you. Yes, and it's more than money. It's trust, respect, and honesty. We agreed on a plan. Lucas would take on part of his expenses. He would have his phone back, but pay half the bill. A car, yes, but a modest one, with him responsible for insurance and fuel. College tuition would be supported by me, but living expenses would be his responsibility. Dad, what about Mum and Grant? He asked quietly. Selena made her choices. She'll live with them. My job is to be your father, to ensure you grow into a responsible adult. I'm not funding anyone else's lifestyle. A month later, the consequences of my decision became apparent. Grant's business, once a show of wealth and success, was revealed to be a collapsing network of debt and fake promises. Selena realized that the financial security she thought she had was an illusion. Their lifestyle began unraveling almost immediately. Lucas, meanwhile, experienced a reality check. He had to get a part-time job, navigate public transportation, and understand that luxury isn't guaranteed. Social pressures, lost privileges, and real responsibility forced him to rethink his priorities and his behavior. Eventually, Lucas called again, this time with humility. Dad, I really want another chance. I want to do right by you. I listened. I could have been vindictive, shown him the full weight of his mistakes. But he was my son, and he was genuinely remorseful. We'll rebuild, I told him. Slowly, with honesty, respect, and responsibility. No shortcuts. No disrespect. That weekend, he stayed with me. We talked for hours about money, yes, but more importantly, about respect, trust, and family. By the end, I saw glimpses of the thoughtful, kind kid I'd raised before teenage arrogance and peer pressure clouded his judgment. By the following week, Lucas was beginning to see life differently. He was juggling work at the cafe with homework, and for the first time, he understood the value of money earned versus money given. You mean, you've been paying for a lot of stuff I thought Mum did? He asked one evening while we were making dinner. Yes, Lucas, I said. But it wasn't about the money, it was about being a father, supporting you, and teaching you responsibility. That's what mattered. He nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. I guess I never realized how much of me depended on you, Dad. How much I just took for granted. You're realizing it now, I said, smiling. And that's important. Awareness is the first step toward change. Meanwhile, Selena and Grant's relationship was starting to crumble under its own weight. The truth about Grant's failing business became impossible to hide. Missed payments, hidden debts, and his constant excuses finally exposed the illusion of wealth he'd created. Selena, overwhelmed and humiliated, reached out to me one evening. Jordan, I don't know what to do, she admitted, her voice strained. Everything I thought I had, it's gone. I've made so many mistakes. I've heard you, I said calmly. But you need to understand the choices you've made led to this. My responsibility is to Lucas, not to fix your life for you. I know, I feel like everything's falling apart. Then rebuild, Selena. Be honest. Face reality. Learn from this. But don't expect me to step back into the past. I'm focused on Lucas now. Lucas's transformation continued. He was earning his own money, managing his expenses, and learning what true independence meant. His friends, some of whom had only valued him for his possessions, drifted away. But he grew stronger for it. He realized the difference between fair-weather friends and those who genuinely cared about him. One night, after a long day at work, he sat beside me. Dad, I never thought I'd appreciate things like this, just hanging out, cooking dinner, talking. I always thought it had to be expensive or flashy to matter. I ruffled his hair. The value of life isn't in the price tag, Lucas. It's in respect, relationships, and responsibility. You're learning that now, and that's what matters. Selena, facing her own consequences, started working at a small real estate office. The flashy lifestyle she'd chased was gone, replaced by a more grounded, realistic approach. She seemed calmer, more thoughtful. She had no illusions about Grant's character anymore. And that clarity forced her to reevaluate her priorities. I kept my distance from her, but I made sure to remain available for Lucas. We spent weekends together, talking about college plans, life goals, and how to navigate challenges with integrity. Lucas asked about Northwestern. I can't just take everything for granted. I want to work part-time, save up, and contribute. I don't want to repeat past mistakes. That's the right attitude, I said. I'll cover tuition, but your independence will come from the choices you make, the work you put in, and the responsibility you accept. That's how you build character. By the end of the month, the household dynamic had shifted completely. Lucas was more respectful. Selena was adjusting to reality. And Grant had vanished from the picture, leaving a trail of debts and broken promises. Through it all, I realized something important. Setting boundaries and demanding respect doesn't make someone cruel, it makes them wise. Generosity without limits can be exploited. But generosity, guided by clear expectations, nurtures growth, respect, and lasting relationships. Lucas and I were beginning to rebuild what had been lost. Slowly, carefully, with honesty as our foundation. And for the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace. Not vengeance, not triumph over Selena or Grant. Just the quiet satisfaction of doing right by my son and myself. Spring arrived, and with it, the practical challenges of preparing Lucas for college. Northwestern was just a few months away, and for the first time, I saw him take real ownership of his future. "Dad," he said one afternoon, scanning tuition statements and housing estimates, "I've been crunching numbers. I think I can handle living expenses with my job and a small loan. I don't want to rely on you for everything." I nodded, impressed. "That's responsible. Independence is earned, Lucas. You'll find it's empowering, not limiting." He smiled, a little sheepishly. "I guess it's strange. I always thought having money handed to me meant freedom. Now I see freedom isn't about having it tits, about knowing how to manage it." We spent evenings together going through budget spreadsheets, planning his part-time work schedule, and even discussing ways to save money without sacrificing essentials. He learned about credit, interest rates, and long-term financial planning. For the first time, he was thinking like an adult. Meanwhile, Selena's reality continued to bite. Grant had disappeared entirely, leaving her with mounting debts and a failed business venture she had been entangled in. Her house had to be sold, and she moved into a modest apartment, facing the consequences of chasing illusions of wealth and glamour. One evening, she called, hesitant and quiet. "Lucas, I just wanted to apologize for everything. For the way I pushed things, for how I ignored reality, for the mistakes I made." I took the call. "Selena, I appreciate the apology. But remember, Lucas and I are focused on stability and respect now. Your mistakes are yours to manage. Learn from them, that's the important part." "Yeah, I get it," she admitted, her voice tinged with exhaustion and humility. Lucas, in parallel, was growing into someone I could be proud of. He was no longer the impressionable teen who equated status with worth. He had a job, he managed his expenses, and he was thinking critically about his future. His friends had changed. Those who remained valued him for who he was, not what he had. "Dad," he said, one evening while we were folding laundry, "I think I understand now. The people who really matter don't care about money. They care about honesty, loyalty, and respect. Everything else is just noise." "Exactly," I replied. "And that realization, Lucas, will guide you through life. Money can make things easier, but character and integrity define your worth." By late summer, Northwestern's move-in day arrived. Lucas was ready. He packed his belongings, organized his documents, and even prepared a small budget plan to manage his first semester expenses. At the campus dorm, he turned to me. "Dad, I'm nervous, but I'm ready. I know this is my responsibility now, and I won't let you or myself down." I hugged him tightly. "I'm proud of you, son. Remember, independence doesn't mean isolation. I'm always here for guidance, but your growth is yours to own. As he walked into the dorm, I realized how much had changed. Our relationship, once strained and fractured, had been rebuilt on respect, honesty, and mutual understanding. We had endured challenges that tested boundaries, money, and pride, but through it all, we emerged stronger. Selena eventually adjusted to her new life, her illusions gone, replaced by humility and realism. She focused on her career, paid off debts, and learned to navigate relationships with clearer judgment. Grant disappeared from both our lives. A cautionary tale about deceit and superficial charm. Lucas thrived in his new environment, balancing work, studies, and social life. He called regularly, sharing successes, challenges, and reflections. That fall, I realized an essential truth. The trials and tribulations, the confrontations, and the disappointments weren't just obstacles, they were lessons. They taught me to stand firm, demand respect, and guide my son, not by wealth, but by example. The story wasn't about revenge. It was about rebuilding relationships, learning responsibility, and recognizing true value lessons that Lucas and I would carry for the rest of our lives. By mid-fall, Lucas had settled into college life. He called often, eager to share both triumphs and challenges. He was balancing coursework, a part-time job, and campus activities, learning firsthand how independence worked not just financially, but emotionally and socially. "Dad," he said, one night, over the phone, "I had a disagreement with a professor today. I wanted to take a shortcut on an assignment, but I remembered what you said about integrity. I didn't cheat. It was hard, but I feel good about it." I smiled, proud. "That's exactly the point, Lucas. Success built on honesty is lasting. Shortcuts might seem easier, but they never pay off in the long run." He laughed softly. "I think I finally get it. All those times I complained about having to earn things, I was missing the point. The work itself teaches you more than anything else." Meanwhile, Selena's life had taken a humbling turn. She'd gone from chasing glamour to learning discipline. She found a steady job in real estate, moved into a modest apartment, and started building a new, realistic foundation. She was no longer looking for shortcuts or flashy partners. Slowly, she was learning to take responsibility for her choices. One evening, she reached out, "Caleb, I don't want anything from you. I hope you and Lucas are doing well. I'm trying to get my life together." I kept the tone measured. "Selena, we're fine. Focus on your growth. That's all that matters." Lucas and I continued our weekend calls and visits. I noticed subtle changes in him, the patience he displayed in handling group projects, the willingness to mentor younger students at the youth center, and the thoughtfulness in his spending habits. He wasn't perfect, but he was growing into a responsible adult who understood the value of money, effort, and respect. One weekend visit. Lucas said, "Dad, I never realized how much you sacrificed for me. I thought everything just happened, like magic. Now I said it was you, all along. And I appreciate it more than I can say." I put a hand on his shoulder. "Lucas, it's not about appreciation, it's about understanding. You've got to learn to see effort, respect boundaries, and honor trust. That's how you build meaningful relationships." We spent hours discussing life responsibilities, ethics, and even mistakes. I told him stories of my own failures and successes, hoping he would absorb the lessons without having to endure the same setbacks. At the same time, I focused on my own growth. I became more involved in charitable work, mentoring divorced fathers, struggling with similar challenges. Sharing experiences and strategies helped me process my own past, turning hurt into guidance and purpose. Selena eventually stabilized. She called occasionally, updates about work or minor successes, but the tone was no longer entitled or demanding. She had learned humility and resilience, lessons she'd never have embraced in the comfort of wealth or reliance on others. Lucas, on the other hand, continued to thrive. By winter, he was balancing classes, work, and volunteer activities seamlessly. He even took the initiative to set up a small savings account for emergencies, a move that made me quietly proud. One night, he said, "Dad, I've realized something. Life isn't about who has the most stuff or the flashiest car. It's about the people who show up, the integrity you maintain, and the respect you give and earn. You taught me that, even if I didn't see it at first." I nodded. "Exactly, Lucas. And remember, respect and love are earned continuously. Never take them for granted." The lessons extended beyond money. Lucas was learning emotional resilience, the importance of boundaries, and the value of hard work. He was learning that life's challenges weren't punishments, they were opportunities. To build character. By the time winter break arrived, Lucas had matured significantly. He returned home with a sense of purpose and pride in his accomplishments. He was more thoughtful in conversation, more responsible in his choices, and more aware of the effort required to maintain respect in relationships. Selena, meanwhile, had accepted reality. She was no longer chasing illusions of wealth or relying on others to solve her problems. She was learning to live within her means, rebuild relationships cautiously, and approach life with humility. Through it all, one truth had crystallized for me. Sometimes the toughest lessons are the most transformative. Standing firm, demanding respect, and allowing natural consequences to unfold had reshaped my son, clarified my own values, and revealed the true character of those around us. The story wasn't about revenge or punishment anymore. It was about growth, responsibility, and the enduring power of respect and honesty. Lucas and I had weathered storms, faced disappointments, and rebuilt trust, and in the process, we had formed a bond stronger than either of us had ever imagined. By spring, Lucas had fully adapted to college life. He was juggling classes, a part-time job, and extracurricular activities with increasing confidence. He called me often, not just to report grades or ask for money, but to share insights, frustrations, and triumphs. "Dad," he said one evening, "I had to lead a group project today, and it got really stressful. People weren't agreeing, deadlines were looming, and I felt overwhelmed. But I remembered what you taught me about communication and respect, and I guided them through it." I smiled. That's exactly the kind of skill that lasts longer than any grade. Handling people with respect and patience will take you farther than anything else. Lucas was also learning to manage his finances. He had opened a small checking account, set up a budget, and even started putting money into savings. I could tell he was beginning to understand the value of money beyond instant gratification. Meanwhile, Selena's life continued to stabilize. She had become more self-reliant, earning steady income, paying off debts, and slowly rebuilding her credit. She had even begun volunteering at a local shelter, a step toward reclaiming a sense of purpose beyond material success. Her occasional calls no longer carried frustration or entitlement. They were more about sharing small victories, like a promotion or a successful deal. One day, Lucas called with excitement. "Dad, I got an internship. It's in a finance firm, and I'll actually learn something real. I'll be earning a little money, too, which is exciting." I felt a surge of pride. "Lucas, that's fantastic. You're learning how to combine hard work, responsibility, and initiative. That's invaluable experience." Over the next few months, Lucas began to demonstrate a level of independence I hadn't seen before. He was making thoughtful decisions, managing his social life responsibly, and even mentoring younger students who were struggling with the transition to college. He was evolving from a young man who once equated success with material things into someone who understood effort, integrity, and consequences. Selena had her own turning points. After a confrontation with a former business associate who had tried to pull her into a risky deal, she finally recognized how easily she had been manipulated. She realized that relying on flashy promises rather than steady effort had almost cost her everything. Slowly, she was embracing accountability and self-sufficiency, learning the hard lessons she had ignored in her pursuit of quick rewards. One weekend, Lucas came home for a visit. We sat on the porch, talking about everything, from classes, to finances, to relationships. He had changed, more thoughtful, more grounded, more aware of the world around him. "Dad," he said quietly. I used to think success was about having everything handed to you. I thought being liked by the right people was all that mattered. Now I see that real success is about being reliable, honest, and respectful. That's what matters. I nodded, letting him absorb the lesson. Exactly, Lucas. Life will test you, but the way you respond defines you. You've learned responsibility, respect, and patience skills that can't be taught by money alone. Selena called later that evening. She sounded calmer, more centered. Caleb, I'm finally understanding what you meant when you said, we can't take shortcuts in life. I'm working on rebuilding myself without relying on anyone else to bail me out. I replied, that's good to hear. It's never too late to make better choices, Selena. Focus on your growth, your work, and your integrity. Everything else will follow. Lucas and I spent the weekend reviewing his budget, planning for summer classes, and talking through life strategies. He was excited, confident, and increasingly independent. He had learned not only the value of money and effort, but also the importance of respect and honesty in relationships. Selena, meanwhile, was navigating adulthood with a newfound sense of responsibility. She had learned the hard way that relationships built on convenience, material benefits, or illusions of security rarely last. Her life had become steadier, more authentic, and less dependent on others' approval by the time the semester ended. Lucas had not only excelled academically, but had also grown emotionally. He had begun to understand the balance between independence and connection, freedom and responsibility. He realized that respect is earned daily, and that trust, once broken, must be rebuilt through consistent action. Selena had settled into a realistic routine, learning to live within her means, handle setbacks with resilience, and approach life with humility. The flash and glamour she once sought no longer defined her. Instead, her values and actions reflected her growth. Through it all, one truth became undeniable. The lessons we learn from mistakes, hardships, and consequences shape us far more than easy success ever could. Lucas had matured into a thoughtful, independent young man. Selena was learning accountability and perspective, and I had discovered the power of boundaries, respect, and the courage to stand firm. That spring marked a turning point, not just for Lucas and Selena, but for myself. I had rebuilt my relationship with my son, gained clarity on my own values, and witnessed the transformative power of consequences and accountability. The story wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about growth, resilience, and understanding what truly matters. Lucas and I had forged a bond stronger than before, and Selena had begun the journey of finding her own balance. Life had a way of revealing truth in its own time, and I was finally seeing the results of standing firm, teaching hard lessons, and embracing the value of respect. That summer, Lucas took on a full-time internship at the finance firm. It was challenging, exhausting, and sometimes frustrating, but he thrived. He learned to manage deadlines, communicate with supervisors, and handle real-world problems that no classroom had prepared him for. Each day, he grew more confident, not just in his skills, but in his ability to navigate life independently. Dad, he said one evening after his first week, I didn't realize how much I was taking for granted. My coworkers actually expect you to show up, to do your job, to take responsibility. No one's giving me anything for free, and it feels good. It feels like I'm finally earning something myself. I smiled. That's exactly it, Lucas. Responsibility is empowering, not restricting. When you earn your own way, you value it more. We talked late into the evening about budgeting, time management, and the importance of networking without compromising integrity. I reminded him that true influence comes from reliability, honesty, and competence, not flash or charisma. Selena's situation continued to evolve as well. She had taken on a new role at a growing real estate firm, one that required her to learn quickly and adapt constantly. She struggled at first, but gradually she became more confident in her abilities. She learned to stand her ground, negotiate effectively, and trust her judgment. One afternoon, Selena called me. Caleb, I had a tough day, but I realized something important. I've been blaming others for my mistakes, expecting them to bail me out, and I've wasted so much time. I can't change the past, but I can control what I do now. I want to build something for myself. I replied, that's exactly the lesson that matters, Selena. Recognize your mistakes, take ownership, and move forward with intention. That's how you rebuild your life. Lucas returned home for the 4th of July weekend, and we decided to take a short trip to the mountains. No flashy hotels or expensive excursions, just tents, a small campfire, and hours of conversation. Lucas was excited, not because of luxury, but because of the chance to connect, to learn, and to grow in a setting that required so. Around the fire, he reflected on everything he'd learned since our conversations had started. Dad, I think I finally understand what you meant about respect and value. It's not about what someone gives you or buys for you, it's about how they treat you and how you treat others. I nodded. Exactly, Lucas. Life will test you in ways money can't fix. Integrity, patience, humility. These are what make a life meaningful. Everything else is secondary. Selena's growth became evident when she independently resolved a major dispute at work. Her supervisor called me quietly to compliment her negotiation skills and composure. I was proud, but more than that, I was glad she had finally learned to trust herself, rather than chasing illusions or relying on others. Lucas and I also started mentoring younger students at his university, sharing lessons about responsibility, respect, and hard work. Teaching others reinforced what he had learned himself, and it strengthened our bond even further. Meanwhile, Selena had begun to embrace financial independence fully. She had created a savings plan, started investing cautiously, and was no longer tempted by shortcuts or the allure of easy wealth. She called occasionally to share her progress, not seeking validation, but celebrating her own achievements. One evening, Lucas called after a particularly tough day at the internship. Dad, I messed up on a report, and my supervisor was upset. I felt terrible. I replied calmly, everyone makes mistakes. Lucas, what matters is that you own it, learn from it, and move forward. That's how competence and trust are built. He paused, then said, I get it. I used to panic when I failed, thinking I'd lose everything. Now I see failure is just part of learning. It doesn't define MIT teaches me. It struck me how far he'd come. The boy who once sought approval through flashy possessions and empty status symbols had become a young man who measured worth by character, effort, and respect. Selena, too, had changed. Her calls became less about complaints and more about problem solving. She had a grounded perspective and a growing sense of pride in her accomplishments. She understood that shortcuts might provide temporary comfort, but long-term fulfillment came from accountability and perseverance. By the end of summer, the growth in both Lucas and Selena was undeniable. Lucas had learned independence, responsibility, and humility. Selena had embraced accountability, resilience, and the value of self-reliance. And I, for my part, had learned the power of boundaries, the importance of teaching hard lessons, and the lasting rewards of patience and consistency. That summer cemented the lessons we had all learned the hard way. Respect must be earned. Trust can be rebuilt but not taken for granted, and true success is defined by character, effort, and the relationships we nurture with honesty and care. Life was no longer about proving anything to anyone but ourselves. Lucas was stepping confidently into adulthood. Selena was finding her footing in the real world, and I had discovered the satisfaction of seeing my family grow stronger, wiser, and more self-aware through lessons that couldn't be taught in any other way. When the fall semester began, Lucas was more prepared than ever. He had a plan, a routine, and a mindset that prioritized responsibility over shortcuts. He had secured part-time work on campus, balancing his classes with shifts at the library and tutoring sessions for younger students. Each paycheck was a reminder that hard work paid off, and that independence was both rewarding and empowering. One evening, I received a call from Lucas while he was studying for midterms. Dad, I just realized something. I've been so focused on money and status, trying to impress people, but none of it matters if you're not learning, growing, or respecting yourself and others. I can see it now. I've been chasing illusions. I smiled quietly to myself. Exactly, Lucas. True value comes from the effort you put in, the respect you show, and the integrity you uphold. Everything else is superficial. Selina's transformation continued as well. She had been promoted to a supervisory position at her real estate firm after demonstrating consistent problem-solving skills and leadership. Her co-workers began seeking her advice, not because of authority, but because they respected her judgment. She called to share her progress. Caleb, I managed my first client dispute entirely on my own today. No guidance, no hand-holding. Was nervous, but I realized I can actually do this. I'm not dependent on anyone anymore. I told her, Selina, that's the difference between relying on others and trusting yourself. Growth happens when you take ownership of challenges rather than expecting others to fix them. Lucas and I also spent more time discussing his long-term goals. College wasn't just about earning a degree. It was about building skills, forming connections, and becoming the kind of man who could face challenges with resilience and confidence. I encouraged him to explore internships, volunteer work, and opportunities that would push him beyond his comfort zone. Dad, he said, one evening, I'm scared sometimes. College is huge, and there's so much I don't know. But I feel ready. I know I can handle it because of everything you've taught me. That's the mindset that matters, Lucas. Fear is normal. Confidence comes from preparation and experience. Mistakes will happen, but they're part of learning. Remember, integrity and effort will carry you further than shortcuts ever could. Selina's journey intersected with ours when she asked for advice about a difficult client. I don't want to mess this up, Caleb. If I fail, it could cost me my reputation, but if I succeed, it could solidify my independence. I told her, approach it with honesty, diligence, and respect. Own the outcome, whatever it is. That's the mark of someone who's truly professional and capable. By mid-semester, Lucas had started mentoring first-year students struggling to adjust to college life. He shared not just academic advice, but life lessons, the importance of respecting others, managing finances, and balancing work and study. He realized teaching these lessons reinforced his own growth and gave him a sense of purpose beyond grades or recognition. Selina's financial independence became even more solid. She had set up a strict budget, invested in a conservative portfolio, and even started saving for a future apartment. Her calls to me were now filled with pride and insight rather than confusion or complaints. She had truly learned the value of autonomy and accountability. During the winter break, Lucas returned home. We sat together one evening reviewing his accomplishments over the semester. He had maintained his grades, earned money, volunteered, and grown as a person. Dad, he said, I feel like I've finally found a rhythm. I know what I want. And I'm willing to work for it. I don't need to impress anyone else, because I respect myself. That's the ultimate growth. Lucas, when you stop seeking validation from others and start living according to your values, life becomes clearer. You're building the foundation for your future, and no one can take that away from you. Selina also visited briefly during the break. She shared stories about her work, her new strategies for handling clients, and how she had started saving for her first apartment. Caleb, I finally feel like I'm standing on my own 2 feet. It's challenging, but it's empowering. I'm not dependent on anyone anymore, and that feels incredible. I told her, that's exactly the independence you've been working toward. Remember, self-reliance is not just about money, it's about confidence, judgment, and accountability. As the year progressed, both Lucas and Selina faced challenges that tested their growth. Lucas navigated difficult coursework, complex social dynamics, and the pressures of part-time work. Selina managed high-stakes clients, office politics, and her own personal doubts. Each time, they applied the lessons we had discussed: responsibility, perseverance, and emerged stronger. By the end of the academic year, it was clear that the hard lessons of the previous years had taken root. Lucas had become a mature, self-aware young man capable of handling setbacks without losing confidence. Selina had established herself as a competent, independent professional, with a solid grasp on both personal and financial responsibilities, and I, observing their growth, realized that the most meaningful legacy wasn't wealth or material support, it was the values, resilience, and self-respect we had nurtured together. The past struggles, the conflicts, the misunderstandings, they had all led to this point. A family strengthened not by convenience or privilege, but by hard-earned wisdom and mutual respect. Life had settled into a rhythm that was honest, rewarding, and deeply satisfying. Lessons learned, boundaries respected, and relationships rebuilt. This was the foundation for the next chapter, one grounded in reality, integrity, and true connection. The following summer, Lucas took on an internship at a local engineering firm. The experience was eye-opening. He encountered office politics, tight deadlines, and the reality that talent alone wasn't enough. Discipline, collaboration, and perseverance mattered just as much. Each morning, he would text me a brief update. "Dad, today I had to step in to solve a problem the team was stuck on. Wasn't perfect, but it worked. I feel proud," I replied. "That's exactly the point, Lucas. Growth isn't about being perfect, it's about contributing, learning, and taking responsibility. Mistakes are inevitable, but they are invaluable teachers." Selena, on the other hand, had decided to invest in her first apartment. She scoured neighborhoods, compared rental rates, and managed negotiations entirely on her own. "Caleb," she said one afternoon over the phone, "I can't believe I'm doing this myself. I always imagined someone else would handle it, but I feel so capable." I encouraged her. "That's the independence you've earned, Selena. You're learning that taking ownership of your life, even when it's uncomfortable, builds confidence you can't get any other way." Lucas began to reflect more on the mistakes of the past, especially the moments when he had prioritized appearances and popularity over family and respect. He shared, "Dad, I keep thinking about how I treated you and the things I said. I can't believe I didn't see how much effort and love you put into everything for me." I reminded him gently, "It's not just about looking back, Lucas, it's about how you act moving forward. Acknowledge the past, learn from it, and let it shape better decisions for the future. That's how respect is rebuilt." Selena and Lucas both started volunteering at the local youth center I had been involved with. Teaching and mentoring younger kids gave them perspective. Lucas would help teenagers struggling with academics and self-esteem, while Selena taught practical skills like budgeting and communication. Through this, they realized the value of contribution over consumption and the satisfaction that comes from helping others grow. One evening, Lucas called me after a particularly challenging day. "Dad, I got frustrated with a project, and my supervisor was critical. I felt like giving up, but then I remembered what you taught me about resilience and responsibility. I kept going, and we finished successfully. I actually learned more from the struggle than from success." That's a milestone, Lucas. Learning to endure challenges, without shortcuts or complaints, is what builds character. Success, without struggle, doesn't carry the same meaning. Selena had similar breakthroughs. A client questioned her judgment, and she had to defend her decisions while remaining professional. "It was intimidating at first," she admitted, "but I realized I can handle criticism, and it doesn't define my worth. I have to trust my training, my instincts, and my judgment." We spent one weekend together discussing these lessons. I asked, "Do you both see the difference between reliance and dependence?" Lucas nodded. "Yes, Dad. I'm learning to rely on myself and my skills, but I know I can ask for guidance when it's appropriate. It's different from expecting someone else to fix my problems for me." Selena added, "I see it too. Being independent doesn't mean isolation. It means being capable while still valuing collaboration and advice from trusted sources." Throughout the year, both of them encountered setbacks, financial hiccups, miscommunications, and the inevitable stress of balancing school and work, but each time, they applied the lessons we had discussed. Frustration became motivation, criticism became a tool for growth. Challenges became opportunities to prove their resilience. Meanwhile, Mira's life had taken a more stable path. She had settled into a modest apartment, working diligently at her real estate office, and avoiding any extravagant or impulsive decisions. She reached out occasionally, but her calls were respectful and measured. She had learned, through hard experience, that appearances and flash did not define fulfillment. Brad had completely disappeared from our lives, having burned through his reputation and left a trail of financial and personal fallout. His absence reminded everyone of the consequences of prioritizing style over substance. Lucas graduated the following spring with honors, having maintained his job, his volunteer work, and his studies. Selena had achieved independence and recognition at her firm, gaining both respect and financial stability. They both understood that true success came from consistent effort, integrity, and accountability, not inherited wealth, shortcuts, or superficial recognition. One evening, Lucas and I sat on the porch talking about the future. "Dad," he said, "I understand now that life isn't about avoiding discomfort. It's about facing it head-on, learning from mistakes, and making choices that reflect who you really are." I nodded. "Exactly, Lucas. And remember, respect and love are earned through honesty and integrity, not through money or convenience. You've learned that the hard way, but you've grown stronger because of it." Selena joined us shortly after, sharing her own reflection. "I've realized that independence is empowering, but it also comes with responsibility. I can't rely on anyone else to manage my life, and that's both scary and freeing. I'm grateful for the lessons you and Dad helped me understand." That summer, our family, different now, but still connected, celebrated the growth, resilience, and maturity of Lucas and Selena. There were no illusions, no pretenses, just the acknowledgement of hard-earned wisdom and the satisfaction that comes from facing challenges with courage and integrity. Life had finally shifted. The past struggles, the betrayals, the misunderstandings, they had shaped us, but they did not define us. Respect, effort, and authenticity had replaced reliance, entitlement, and superficial judgments. And for the first time in years, the family dynamic, though changed, felt genuinely grounded, balanced, and real. But by the end of the year, everything had settled into a rhythm that felt sustainable. Lucas had started his freshman year at Northwestern. The reality of managing tuition, books, rent, and living expenses was a new challenge, but he handled it with maturity. He called me frequently, not to demand, but to share updates, ask for guidance, and reflect on his experiences. "Dad," he said, during one of our calls, "I bought my first set of textbooks without asking for help. It feels good. I feel responsible for my own learning in a way I never did before." "That's exactly the point, Lucas," I replied. "Ownership is empowering. You're learning that every choice has consequences, but every consequence carries a lesson. That's the kind of independence that lasts a lifetime." Selena had advanced in her career as well, earning recognition for her initiative and ability to manage complex projects. Her confidence was no longer tied to validation from others. It came from knowing she could succeed on her own merits. One weekend, we gathered for a small family dinner. Not the lavish, tension-filled gatherings of the past, but something simple and intentional. Mira had joined, invited by Lucas, though the atmosphere was polite rather than warm. She had learned to appreciate stability over flashiness, humility over pride. "Caleb," she admitted quietly, "I see now that I undervalued the stability and care you provided for years. I let appearances and promises sway me, and I lost perspective. Thank you for teaching our children, and directly, me what truly matters." I nodded, acknowledging her words. "We all make mistakes, Mira. What matters is learning from them and moving forward without resentment. That applies to all of us, not just the children." Lucas chimed in. "Mum, Dad taught me that respect and effort matter more than wealth or influence. I get it now, and I'm grateful for the clarity. It was hard, but it shaped me," Selena added, "and it gave me the confidence to handle life on my own, without expecting someone else to rescue me. That's a freedom I never appreciated before." That night, after everyone had left, I reflected on the journey. It had been long, painful, and full of lessons learned the hard way. But in hindsight, the hardships had created a foundation for respect, responsibility, and genuine understanding. I realized that life's most valuable lessons often come from discomfort, conflict, and the need to stand firm in your values. My experiences with Mira, Brad, and even the earlier struggles with Lucas had reinforced the importance of boundaries, integrity, and consistency. Generosity is meaningful only when it is accompanied by respect and mutual responsibility. Henry Zor, in this script, Lucas's growth was a testament to the power of consequence and guidance. He had faced setbacks, endured disappointments, and learned resilience. The respect he now showed was not out of obligation, but out of understanding and recognition of what had been sacrificed for him. That was far more valuable than money appearances or fleeting indulgences. Selena's journey mirrored this, reinforcing that independence paired with accountability produces confidence that lasts. She understood that true success is measured by character, not possessions. Looking forward, the future was uncertain, as it always is. But now, it was grounded in truth rather than illusion, in effort rather than entitlement, and in mutual respect rather than manipulation. I had learnt to value my time, energy, and self-worth, refusing to let them be exploited by anyone, no matter how close. And Lucas and Selena had learned their own lessons, that life demands responsibility, that respect must be earned and reciprocated, and that choices have real consequences. Their growth was my greatest reward, a reassurance that standing firm in my principles had been worth every challenge. Sometimes, the best outcomes come not from revenge or proving a point, but from letting life unfold naturally, letting people experience their own consequences, and being ready to guide them with patience, love, and honesty when they are ready to listen. As I sat alone that evening, the house quiet and still, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. The journey had been tumultuous, yes, but it had brought clarity, growth, and a newfound balance. I had protected what mattered most: my dignity, my values, and my children's ability to navigate life with integrity. And for the first time in a long time, I was confident that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them with respect, honesty, and resilience together in spirit, if not always in circumstance. Sometimes, losing everything temporarily is the only way to realize what truly matters, and sometimes, letting go is the only path to gain everything that counts.